I never imagined I would outlive my only son. At 68, standing in the dimly lit funeral home, the scent of lilies and grief hung thick in the air, and I felt the world collapse around me. My hand trembled as I touched Noah's cold cheek one last time, whispering a quiet, broken goodbye to the beautiful boy who had grown into the man I had always been proud of. How could this be happening? 3 months from diagnosis to death, it wasn't nearly enough time to say all the things that needed saying to prepare for a world without him in it. And yet here I was going through the motions, nodding to condolences I couldn't hear, hugging strangers like a puppet in a performance I didn't want to play. Elizabeth, my daughter-in-law of 15 years, sat beside me in a perfectly pressed black dress, her makeup flawless, despite the occasional dab of a monogrammed handkerchief. Noah had brought her into our lives when she was a young college sweetheart, and I had loved her as the daughter I never had. Now, as I watched her rise and whisper, "I need some air," squeezing my hand before walking toward the back, I clung to the hope that somehow we could support each other through this unbearable grief. But as she passed the small alcove where I had paused near the restroom, her voice carried a note that froze my blood. God, I thought this day would never end. Now I get to finally get rid of that old shrew. I froze, heart-hammering, as another woman asked, "Of course, Olga." Elizabeth's voice dripped with venom. "Noah insisted she live with us after Harold died. She has nowhere else to go. But now Noah's gone and I don't have to pretend anymore. There's a perfectly adequate nursing home on the edge of town. She's pushing 70. It's where she belongs anyway." Her laughter, once musical to me, sounded like shards of glass cutting through my chest. My cane dug into the tile as I retreated, silently shaking from a rage and fear I hadn't felt in decades. All these years I had thought Elizabeth loved me. I had been a fool. Back in the viewing room, I looked at Noah's serene face with new eyes, wondering if he had known the truth about his wife. Would he have done anything differently if he had? My thoughts were interrupted by a memory of a private conversation we had just weeks before his death. Weak and frail, he had gripped my hand with surprising strength and said, "Mom, let her think she's won. Let her make her plans." At the time, I hadn't understood. Now the pieces were falling into place. That night, sleep was impossible. Elizabeth's words echoed in my mind. That old shrew. Finally. The nursing home. I lay in the guest bedroom, never truly mine. Despite living there for 5 years, memories of Noah, of Harold, of all the decisions I had made, selling our house, investing in properties for the future, flooding back. All of it seemed to hang on a knife's edge, now threatened by Elizabeth's true intentions. I remembered the day Harold died 8 years ago, and how easily Elizabeth had convinced me to sell the house Harold and I had built to trust her and Noah with the money. I had done so unquestioningly, and now I feared that my life, my home, and everything I had worked for might be taken from me. But there was one thing Elizabeth didn't know. Noah had told me something in those last lucid moments, something I had tucked away in my heart, believing I would understand it fully when the time came. And now, as dawn broke, that understanding began to crystallize. Noah hadn't just protected me, he had prepared me for what was coming. And tomorrow, when the will was read, Elizabeth's plans would collide with the truth in a way she never imagined. The morning of the will reading, I moved slowly, leaning heavily on my cane, each step a mixture of grief, anticipation, and fear. Ethan and Lily, my grandchildren, followed silently behind me, their small hands occasionally brushing mine for reassurance. Elizabeth walked ahead, her heels clicking sharply on the polished hardwood, a picture of confidence and composure, her black suit immaculate, her face unreadable. But I could see it, the tension beneath her perfectly controlled mask, the impatience coiled beneath her poise. The law office of Bradley and Associates was smaller than I had imagined the top floor of a modest downtown building. The conference room felt cold, sterile, and intimate, as if the walls themselves would eavesdrop on every word spoken. Noah's attorney, Mr. Bradley, greeted us with a practiced solemnity, shaking hands with everyone before guiding us to our seats. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice calm, measured, yet heavy with the weight of what was to come. "I know this is a difficult time. Noah was very specific about his wishes, and it is my duty to ensure they are carried out exactly as he intended." Elizabeth's fingers tapped impatiently against her thigh under the table, a subtle rhythm of irritation that betrayed the confidence she tried to exude. "He never mentioned any changes to me," she said softly but sharply when Mr. Bradley paused. Her composure flickered for a brief second. "Proceed," she added, her voice forced. First, Mr. Bradley continued shuffling the papers before him regarding the family residence at Maple Avenue and the vacation property at Lake Tahoe. Both properties are to be placed into a family trust with Olga Harrison named as trustee. The trust specifies that Olga has the right to live in either property for the remainder of her life. Upon her passing, both properties will transfer to Ethan and Lily Harrison to be shared equally. Elizabeth's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she whispered, her voice tight. "He can't just— Actually, Mrs. Harrison." Mr. Bradley interjected gently while the family home was purchased. "In both your names, Noah transferred his interest in both properties to a trust 3 years ago, with your signature on the transfer documents. The Tahoe property was never in your name at all. It was purchased directly into the trust." I sat frozen memories of signing the documents 3 years prior, flooding back. Noah had insisted it was routine estate planning. Elizabeth had rolled her eyes, then complaining it was unnecessary. Noah had anticipated everything. And his financial assets, Elizabeth demanded, her voice rising, betraying both anger and disbelief. His retirement accounts totaling approximately $875,000, Mr. Bradley said, are to be divided as follows: 60% to a trust for Ethan and Lily's education and needs, with Olga as trustee, 20% directly to Olga for her care and maintenance, and 20% to Elizabeth. 20%. That's all Elizabeth's composure cracked. "He's my husband." "Yes," Mr. Bradley said, his tone calm but precise, "all drafted per Noah's explicit instructions, documented and verified for his mental capacity. Contesting the will would be costly, time-consuming, and unlikely to succeed." Elizabeth's eyes darted wildly around the room, landing on me. The fury in her gaze was so raw it made my chest tighten. She hissed, "You did this! You turned him against me." I remained silent, heart-pounding, tears threatening to fall. Noah had protected me. He had seen her true colors, her plans to put me in a nursing home to claim everything for herself once he was gone. And now he had made sure she couldn't. Mr. Bradley continued with the remaining provisions. The family business, Harrison Design Group, was placed in trust, with 75% ownership for the children and 25% allocated to the company's employees through a profit-sharing plan Noah had established just a month before his death. Elizabeth's hands shook visibly now, her carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of reality. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the moment. Noah's final act of love wasn't just protection, it was justice, carefully measured, precise, and unwavering. The days after the reading of the will were like walking through a storm, though the sky outside was calm. Elizabeth moved through the house with barely concealed rage, slamming doors, muttering under her breath, her voice biting whenever she addressed me. "This isn't over," she warned sharply one night, cornering me in the kitchen, her finger jabbing the air inches from my face. Noah was manipulated. He wasn't thinking clearly. I met her gaze steadily, my own grief hardened into quiet resolve. No, Elizabeth. Noah was protecting his family, his children, and me. He made his choices deliberately. Her laugh was bitter, hollow. Family. "You think this is about family? It's about money, Olga. My money. The life I built with Noah that you're trying to steal." "I didn't ask him to change his will," I said softly, almost whispering. "I didn't even know he had until yesterday." "Liar," she hissed, stepping closer. "You played the helpless old lady card, made him feel guilty. Well, I won't let you get away with it. I'm contesting the will." 3 days later, the papers arrived. Elizabeth had hired Winston Green, a lawyer known for his aggressive tactics in high-stakes divorce and probate cases. The lawsuit claimed Noah had been unduly influenced and lacked testamentary capacity when he changed his will. My stomach twisted, the room spinning around me. I had no money for a legal battle. The proceeds from selling my house years ago had gone entirely to Noah and Elizabeth. But hope came in the form of Marion Chen, a sharp elder law attorney who specialized in protecting vulnerable clients from financial abuse. "This is elder abuse," Marion said bluntly during our first meeting. "Noah recognized what was happening and took steps to protect you. We'll finish what he started." Elizabeth's first attempt was to evict me from the house while the case was pending. Marion blocked it immediately with a temporary order. Her next tactic was to limit my access to Ethan and Lily, manipulating teachers and neighbors with whispers about my mental state. "Olga's mental state is concerning," Elizabeth told anyone who would listen. "She's making wild accusations, elder paranoia." The children began to ask questions, their innocence colliding with the tension surrounding them. "Grandma, are you sick?" Lily asked one afternoon. Her small face creased with worry. "No, sweetheart, I'm fine," I reassured her. "Then why is Mom saying those things?" Ethan demanded, his 13-year-old voice steady but hurt. I had to choose my words carefully. "Your mom and I have different ideas about what should happen now that your dad is gone, but we both love you very much." Elizabeth appeared at that moment, her eyes narrowing as she saw us together. "Kids, go do your homework," she ordered, her tone clipped and commanding. "Don't fill their heads with your version of events," she said to me. But the cracks were visible now. She had underestimated the bond between us, the loyalty that grief had forged. The court battle dragged on, a war of attrition, motion after motion, each one designed to exhaust us and the trust Noah had set up for his children. Then came the night I found her in Noah's home office, rifling through his desk. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. "This is still my house," she snapped, glancing at me. "I can look through his things if I want to." I didn't answer, but my eyes followed her. She'd been searching for something, proof, leverage, a way to rewrite the future she had envisioned. That night, after she left with Ryan, I opened the bottom drawer where Noah had guided me to look in one of our final private conversations. There, it was a sealed envelope with my name on it inside a USB drive and a handwritten note from Noah. "Mom," the note began, "if you're reading this, things have gone as I feared. Elizabeth has shown her true colors. The evidence you need is on this drive: financial records, emails, recordings of conversations. I started gathering them when I first became suspicious last year. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to protect you and secure everything legally before confronting her. Now let this help you protect yourself and the kids." I held the drive in my hands, trembling. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the full extent of his efforts, the love and foresight that had guided him even through the pain of illness and the shadow of betrayal. The next morning, I called Marion immediately. "I have something you need to see," I said, my voice shaking but firm. She arrived quickly, her presence calm and commanding, and together we examined the USB drive. Dozens of documents lay before us, financial records showing Elizabeth had siphoned money into a private account, emails exchanged with Ryan, dating back 2 years, recordings of conversations where she explicitly planned to put me in a nursing home and liquidate the family assets once I was out of the way. My heart pounded as I listened to her own voice, unguarded, cruel planning, a future I would never have imagined. Marion's eyes narrowed as she examined the evidence. "This is damning," she said. "We can use every piece of this in court." Noah prepared for this. He knew. The courtroom the following week felt smaller than I expected, intimate in a way that made every whispered accusation and strained gaze feel magnified. I sat beside Marion, my back straight. Despite the ache in my joints, my hands folded in my lap to hide the trembling that still lingered from grief and fury. Across the aisle, Elizabeth sat with Winston Green, immaculate as always, a mask of composure, though I noticed her fingers tapping nervously against her leg. She avoided looking at me directly, the grieving widow facade tightly in place, yet I could see the tension coiled beneath her perfect posture. Judge Harriet Collins, stern and meticulous, presided over the hearing. Her gaze swept over the documents before her as she began. "This hearing is to address the petition to contest the will of Noah Harrison," she said. "Mrs. Elizabeth Harrison claims the deceased was not of sound mind when making his final amendments and was unduly influenced. Ms. Chen, you filed a counter motion to dismiss the petition entirely. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marion said, rising gracefully. "We have submitted new evidence that bears directly on this matter, which we believe renders the contest moot." Elizabeth's composure faltered for a fraction of a second, a flicker of unease in her otherwise cold expression. I see she set her voice a touch higher than usual. "Proceed, then." Marion presented the USB drive first, carefully explaining the recordings and documents showing Elizabeth's affair with Ryan and her plans for financial manipulation. The courtroom murmured in shock as the evidence was revealed. Elizabeth's face drained of color. "This is absurd," she burst, her voice rising. Winston Green reached to calm her, but she waved him off, eyes fixed on me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Marion called me to the stand first. I rose shakily, my legs feeling leaden under me, and answered her questions with steady clarity, recounting my relationship with Noah, the arrangements he had made, the trust he had created for the children and for me. Winston Green's cross-examination was relentless. "Mrs. Harrison, isn't it convenient that you stand to gain control of assets that would otherwise go to the decedent's spouse?" he asked, trying to paint me as manipulative. "Your Honor." Marion interrupted firmly. "Objection. Argumentative." The judge nodded. Sustained. "Mr. Green, confine yourself to questions, not insinuations." He shifted tactics, attempting to cast doubt on my mental capacity. "Have you ever been diagnosed with dementia or memory issues?" he pressed. "Yet you claim to be unaware of conversations with your son. Could you be misremembering?" I met his gaze. "No, my memory is clear. Noah told me he had made arrangements but did not share the details. He wanted to protect me from exactly this confrontation." Then Marion called her surprise witness. Ryan Kendall entered the courtroom, avoiding Elizabeth's glare as he was sworn in. "Mr. Kendall," Marion began, "could you describe your relationship with Elizabeth Harrison?" "We've been involved for about 2 years," he admitted, voice quiet but firm. "She told me her marriage was essentially over and that it was just a matter of time until she could be with me openly." Elizabeth gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth. "Traitor," she hissed, barely contained. Judge Collins banged her gavel sharply. "Mrs. Harrison, control yourself, or you will be removed from the courtroom." Ryan confirmed the emails, the recordings, the plans to move to Arizona, and Elizabeth's intentions regarding me and the family assets. By the time Winston Green began his cross-examination, the damage was done. The evidence Noah had left me, his foresight, his love, it all spoke for itself. From the back of the courtroom, I saw Ethan's face, pale tears filling his eyes as he absorbed the truth about his mother. My heart ached for him, but I knew he needed to see it to understand the lengths his father had gone to protect all of us. 2 weeks later, Judge Collins delivered her ruling. Her voice was steady, resolute. She dismissed Elizabeth's petition to contest the will entirely upholding Noah's final arrangements. The relief that washed over me was almost dizzying, a tide of emotions, too complex for words, grief still lingering, yes, but tempered now with justice and safety. Elizabeth's face contorted in fury, her lips pressed into a thin line, but even she could see there was nothing left to fight. She took her 20% share of the retirement funds, nearly $175,000, and moved to Phoenix with Ryan. I later heard they had already broken up. Some secrets and betrayals burned too fiercely to sustain love. The children, Ethan and Lily, chose to stay with me. Ethan, now 16, tall and serious like his father, wanted to be part of the family home to help preserve what Noah had protected. Lily, 12, was torn, but she recognized the stability and love in our home. We spent hours in therapy together, learning to communicate, to grieve, and to rebuild trust. "Why didn't Dad tell us about Mom?" Ethan asked one evening on the porch swing, his voice low and thoughtful. I held his hand, feeling the warmth of his small but firm grasp. "He wanted to protect you," I said carefully. He knew the truth would be painful, and he needed to secure your future first. He saved us. Noah had. He had saved us all. We reclaimed the family home, the place I thought I would lose forever, and I settled into the master bedroom, removing Elizabeth's furnishings, replacing them with simple, comforting pieces that felt like me. The Harrison Design Group flourished under the board Noah had set up, and I became more involved than I ever expected, learning, advising, and watching the children grow into their roles in the business. Lily sketches designs for interiors and buildings with a passion that takes my breath away. "Dad would have loved this," she says, and I nod, tears welling. Ethan studies business and architecture, already talking about one day running the company, and I see in him the determination and kindness that defined his father. Evenings are filled with quiet joy, the echo of grief softened into memories of Noah's love. Holidays at the Tahoe cabin are laughter-filled, spontaneous, the children exploring learning and feeling secure. I've even allowed myself small moments of personal happiness, watercolor classes, a book club, and coffee dates with Frank, a kind widower I met at the community garden. He makes me laugh, makes me feel like a woman again, not just a grieving mother or doting grandmother. Sometimes when the house is quiet, I speak to Noah. "We're okay, son," I whisper, touching the photo of him by my bed. "We're happy again. You did good. You protected us." Yesterday marked the anniversary of his death. We visited his grave together, Ethan and Lily placing fresh flowers, sharing stories, remembering, laughing, crying. Ethan put his arm around me, Lily holding tight to my hand. "I think Dad would love most that we're happy again," Ethan said, his eyes bright. Lily nodded solemnly, and that Mom got what she deserved. I smiled a quiet, deep smile, proud of these resilient, wise young souls who had endured so much, yet remained gentle and kind. Noah's last act of love ensured we survived betrayal and loss, and in doing so, he gave us not just security, but the chance to live fully, freely, and with joy. Life has a way of testing us, of forcing us to confront deceit, grief, and heartbreak, but it also offers redemption love and the beauty of family bound by choice. I learned that justice is not always swift, but it can be certain, and living well is indeed the sweetest revenge. If you've been moved by our story, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far our story has reached. And remember, protecting those you love, even when they cannot protect themselves, can leave a legacy stronger than any betrayal.